This is the Chamber Chat Podcast, the show dedicated to chamber professionals to spark ideas and to get actionable tips and strategies to better serve your members and community. Hello, Chamber Champions. Welcome to Chamber Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Burton, and it's my goal here on the podcast to introduce you to people and ideas to better help you serve your chamber members and your community. Our title sponsor for this episode is Bringing Local Back. Remember when your community could turn to a local TV station or newspaper for the latest updates and affordable ads? Those days may be fading, but the need for local connection remains. That's why we created Bringing Local Back, a game-changing platform that restores local visibility and advertising power to your community. It's more than just tech. It's about driving engagement and creating new revenue for your chamber. Ready to see the future? Visit bringinglocalback.com to schedule your demo today. This is the future of local commerce. You're joining us for a special episode in our 2025 ACCE Chamber of the Year Finalist Series. And as our guests for this episode, we have Juliet Abdel and Bob Ross with the Greater Topeka Partnership. Juliet serves as the president of the Greater Topeka Chamber, making history as the first woman to lead the organization since its founding in 1933. She's recognized among the top 1% of chamber executives nationwide and contributes her expertise to various leadership and advisory boards, including the ACCE and leadership program of the Rockies. Juliet's commitment to community service is evident through her involvement with organizations like the American Heart Association's Go Red program and Women of Heart, as well as her service on the U.S. Chamber Board of Directors. She holds a master's degree in international studies and has authored publications on female empowerment and entrepreneurship. Juliet's strategic leadership has earned statewide and national recognition as she is multilingual, speaking English, Arabic, and Turkish. Bob is the Chief Marketing Officer for the Greater Topeka Partnership, and he plays a key role in promoting economic growth and community development in Topeka and Shawnee County. A Topeka native, Bob has extensive experience in merchandise allocation and planning, having spent over 15 years at Payless Shoe Source, including leading international operations in Israel, Peru, Thailand, Vietnam, and Australia. Bob returned to Topeka in 2019 and now contributes his expertise to advancing the initiatives of the Greater Topeka Partnership, working alongside Juliet to drive growth and success for the region. But Bob and Juliet, welcome to Chamber Chat Podcast. We're excited to have you on the show today. Congratulations to you guys and your team as being selected as a Chamber of the Year finalist. It's very exciting. But I wanted to give you both the chance to say hello to all the Chamber champions who are out there listening. And if you would humor us and share something interesting about yourself so we can all get to know you both a little bit better. Juliet, you want to go first?
Sure. Thank you so much, Brandon, for having us both on here. You've done an exceptionally great job about summarizing our achievements, and it's so well. I'm just, gawking at myself without even, blinking an eye. But no, super exciting time for us, of course, and to see our organization gets to this level and to have this attention on a lot of the initiatives and programs that we have going on. So you've already led with a lot of amazing things. So one interesting thing about myself is I'm branded as the self-care boss because I always continue to advocate for self-care and holistic wellness by focusing on mental, emotional, and physical well-being. So in my personal life, I do a lot of speaking engagements. I lead Love Yourself boot camps. I am a published author, international radio show host, and that is what holds me personally accountable to my own personal goals in life and having that balance as much as I can have in a crazy busy world that we live in.
I love that. That's awesome. Bob, how about yourself?
Well, Juliet's a tough act to follow, but I will say, probably a distinguishing factor of me is I'm a proud dad of 5 kids that keep me very, very, very busy, and my per capita income very, very low as I am constantly navigating their dreams. But it's also part of the reason why I'm so passionate about this work. because I do believe what chambers can do is they really set the table for future generations. And so, leaving the private sector after 20 years, it allowed me to discover an industry which is about, investing in that future generation by creating a better community, for my kids. And I think that that's, exciting work. And I think that often the chamber industry is not fully understood. But when people do work and discover it, they realize it's, really such an important part of the mission of, handing off a better generation to the one that comes behind us. So yeah, that's a little about me.
That's great. Not to put you on the spot, Bob, but what's the range of the kids?
Oh
What's the
gosh,
age
now
range
they
look
are
like?
my youngest. She is 15. My oldest is 23. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so I got three in college, which is why I constantly feel broke 24/7. Is that I often tell people, it's like you think when they're 18 that you are good.
No.
No, they just become more expensive after they're 18. And, but yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way. Like I said, they definitely keep me on my toes.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, Juliet, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Greater Topeka Partnership, just to give us an idea of size, staff, scope of work
Yeah.
you guys are involved with, budget, just kind of set the stage.
Sure. I'm going to give a 3,000-foot perspective. I think Bob said it so well. When people don't understand what our
Yeah.
industry is and how much of a hidden gem it is, let's even further add to that these layers of differences between one community to the next and how chambers of commerces operate. Our community is super unique because we have this collaborative structure that's branded as the Greater Topeka Partnership. And what that essentially means is we have 4 organizations that have come together that touch economic community development, all agreeing to this economic vitality and pursuing this hope, happiness, and wealth for Topeka and the surrounding region. And we do that through cross collaboration, through working together to advance initiatives and projects forward, and of course, through sharing resources, staff, and even office space. So when we're looking at the entire partnership, that's upward of 40 employees that work here, about a $13 million budget that's mixed between public and private sector. The individual entities that make us up, of course, represent collectively the 1,000+ members that we have in the surrounding community. And that's businesses, it's nonprofits, it's key stakeholders that you can think of and attribute to. Our population in our service area is about 178,000. So the 4 organizations that came together, of course, were the Chamber of Commerce, which I lead, as you shared. That is a group that's focused on government affairs, regulatory support, public policy efforts, connecting businesses to resources, and of course to their elected officials. Go Topeka, who we'll spend some time on as it relates to this specific effort, handles all of our economic development for Topeka and Shawnee County, focusing on business retention, expansion, support through incentives, through workforce development, childcare, and through different events and trainings that are designed to equip those businesses with ultimate success. Visit Topeka is focused on attracting people to our area and activating our residents and ensuring that people are aware of the things that they can visibly go out and see, things they can do, where to stay, shop, and dine, and essentially invest in a community if they're coming from outside. And if they're internally here, then grow to appreciate the things that make us truly unique. And the 4th being downtown Topeka, which is focused on ensuring that our heartbeat for the community continues to thrive and continues to be available to those merchants that make up your traditional Main Street corridor. And so they focus on things like safety, beautification, and grants, and again, being that resource for those businesses that are in the area. So 4 powerful organizations that convene and collaborate and partner under the name of the Greater Topeka Partnership. We're still separate organizations, separate budgets, bylaws. We just have this very incestuous relationship that I've tried my best to explain.
I think you did a fantastic job explaining it. And I love how you guys can take advantage of that overlap to be able to share some staff and some responsibilities, but still keep things separate. I also really like with Visit Topeka, how you talked about activating residents. I'm like,
Yeah.
that is such a great term to activate residents. So, well, for the majority of our conversation today, what we want to do is focus on the 2 programs that were submitted on your Chamber of the Year application that are being highlighted. And we will dive into those with much greater detail as soon as I get back from this quick break.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Rose.
And we're the founders of App My Community, a mobile app that can be customized to meet the unique needs of your Chamber of Commerce.
When we started App My Community, we envisioned a tool that would help communities thrive by simplifying communication and enhancing engagement. Chambers of Commerce face unique challenges, and we're here to help you tackle them.
App My Community helps the Evergreen Area Chamber of Commerce to create an app that keeps tourists informed even when their office is closed. They provide 24/7 access to local business information, which helps support the local economy and community engagement.
In Rocky Mountain House, we helped the Rocky Chamber create an app with dynamic itineraries and digital resources for tourists, increasing local business engagement. The app has become an essential tool for the community, promoting events and boosting visibility for local merchants.
Today, we empower more than 200 chambers of commerce, campgrounds, and RV resorts to streamline communication, informing members about events, sharing business updates, and providing a digital hub for the community, all in one convenient app.
When you partner with App My Community, our team works closely with you to create an app that meets your chamber's unique needs. As your community grows, our app evolves with you. We are here to ensure you engage effectively with your members and streamline your operations.
Schedule a demo today at appmycommunity.com.
We can't wait to meet you.
Are you ready to take your organization's funding to the next level? Hi, I'm Clint Neesmith, CEO of Resource Development Group. As a Chamber of Commerce or Economic Development Organization leader, I know you understand the value of working with experts who understand your world. And that's exactly what RDG does best. For over 30 years, RDG has specialized in fundraising for EDOs and chambers. We bring cutting-edge strategies tailored to your organization, whether you're just starting out or gearing up for yet another new funding cycle. Importantly, our firm executives are hands-on from start to finish, from the feasibility study to the successful conclusion of your fundraising campaign, and our team brings deep industry roots and national expertise to every engagement. No matter the size of your community, RDG delivers data-driven, innovative revenue solutions, reinforcing ROI to investors and making sure your vision becomes reality. At RDG, we proudly build organizations that build communities. Visit us today at rdgfundraising.com and let us partner with you, building a stronger future for your organization and the community you are working to grow and develop.
All right, we are back. As I mentioned before the break, we're diving into the two programs from your Chamber of the Year application. Bob, I want to hand the microphone over to you and have you highlight the first program, which I believe you call Choose Topeka 2.0. You want to tell us what that's all about?
Absolutely. Choose Topeka began in 2019 as a program through our economic development organization, Go Topeka. And you have to understand the funding model for Go Topeka. We enjoy a percentage of a half-cent sales tax, which generates about $5 million a year, and funding that can be used to attract businesses through traditional business attraction efforts. It's used to invest in our small businesses to encourage growth within our community. But uniquely, we began to look at how we can deploy those dollars to enhance and attract talent. And with Topeka, it's a unique community that, I often tell people up until 1980, this community was growing at about a 20% decennial rate. But through the 90s and 2000s, our growth really stalled to really be, pretty much low single digits to flat as we started moving into 2020. And Choose Topeka was a program that was initiated to reintroduce our community not just to the state of Kansas, but to the region and across the world. And part of that was driven by the fact that Topeka as a community over the last 10 years has radically chose to reinvest in itself with over $500 million put into our downtown with new business growth. And we've done the work to rebuild our community. Now we wanted essentially people to essentially rediscover it, because as late as 2020, over 40% of our workforce chose to work in Topeka, but live outside the community. So the Choose program was developed with one core component, which is offering people up to $15,000 to relocate to Topeka and Shawnee County if they were to work for one of our local employers. During the pandemic, we layered in a remote work incentive, which became very popular. But then in 2023, we relaunched the program as Choose Topeka 2.0. We sunset the remote worker incentive, but decided to look at what does Topeka need to do to compete for talent and raise awareness as our community as a place to work, live, and play. And what advantages could we offer that conversation? And Choose Topeka 2.0 layered in a $5,000 relocation grant to those that formerly lived in our community, $5,000 to those who are transitioning veterans, because we have nearby Fort Riley and Fort Leavenworth, as well as our own local Air National Guard and Air Force contingent here in Topeka. But then we also started to consider what other ways could we attract the workforce we need in our community. And we began to look at just the strengths our community had to offer. And we noticed immediately Topeka has a very strong and proud Hispanic heritage. I often say there were three communities or three groups that originally founded the city back in the 19th century. They were abolitionists, freed slaves, and Mexican immigrants that came to build the railroad. And so for over 100 years, our Mexican community, has thrived. For 92 years, we have a vibrant fiesta. And we really have a lot of Latino excellence within our city. So we decided, you know what? Let's capitalize on that, knowing that there are 100,000 Spanish speakers in the Kansas City metro, which is 45 minutes to our east. And there's over 300,000 Spanish speakers across the state of Kansas. How do we begin to reach out to them and let them know, if you're legally eligible to work in Topeka and Shawnee County, we want you, that this is a community that's very welcoming, that we have jobs here, we are growing. And how do we begin to speak and engage with them about the programs like our incentive programs and other assets which make Topeka a really dynamic place to live? And so what we did was we essentially started producing all of our collateral in Spanish, including a 110-page tourism and relocation guide. And then we began to also court our national media, because we enjoy a great relationship with a New Jersey-based PR firm. And we began to really just talk about this intentionality with Spanish language. And that really captured a lot of interest. We were able to welcome Telemundo into our community in October of 2023. We were able to get the Wall Street Journal here. And there was a disruptive element to a community that identified Hispanic migration as a solution to a problem, not a problem. We also worked with local nonprofits. There's a group called Top City Promise, which began to actively work with refugee groups that were legally eligible to work in the United States following the onset of the Ukraine war. And through that program, although they're not eligible for the incentive per se, we were able to essentially come alongside them and see what we can do to connect them to employers. And that particular program brought over 200 Ukrainian refugees who had work eligibility through the United for Ukraine program. We were able to get them, job placement at a 90% rate, serving important workforce needs within our community. And I will say, after our Telemundo appearance, that particular moment went viral across Spanish language TikTok, garnering billions of views across the Spanish speaking world, and really drove a highly motivated population to find their way to Topeka. I mean, we had within days people showing up at our door saying, knocking on our door, asking for information about how they can relocate their business to Topeka. We had one gentleman, his son and his grandfather, who have a business in New Jersey, who said they heard about Topeka as a great place for Hispanics, and they wanted to see what they could do. And so we had to rapidly spin up our Spanish-speaking staff to be able to engage these communities, also address some misconceptions about the program, and really kind of harness that momentum. It has proven to be incredibly successful, to the point where the Brookings report released data at the spring of this year, which showed that 99% of Topeka's growth over the last year was from foreign-born groups. And that's a tremendous movement, because when you do live in Kansas, you're in a community which is fantastic, but we're often considered flyover country. So, trying to get a mobilized workforce from around the country that is considering where they want to live, getting on their radar was the first hurdle. So we tried to activate every vehicle at our disposal. And so I think between the incentives and our foreign language outreach, we were able to really make a dent and reverse a trend. Some additional metrics showing how the progress has worked. That decline in population or stagnation has been reversed to the point in 2023. We led the state of Kansas in population growth. We now boast one of the top 10 housing markets in the United States. And in the fall of 2023, we ended up rising up to be the number one housing market in the United States, according to the Wall Street Journal and Realtor.com. So this intentionality, focused with a pretty bold use of funding, really helped to push us forward. Where now one of our biggest concerns is how do we keep up with the housing demand, because Topeka was not quite ready for the shift in momentum that we enjoyed.
That was going to be one of my questions. There's going to be the fallout from such growth so quickly. And I love how you said you took what may be considered a problem in some communities and really seeing it as a strength, as an asset. But when you have that kind of rapid growth overnight, that creates other problems, right? But
absolutely.
But problems we're all happy to deal with because it means progress. So I can imagine when there's in most communities, there's a pretty large segment of the community that has a certain level of comfort with how things are. And then they see a disruption like this that comes in, even though it's a good thing, that are going to be kind of that squeaky wheel in a community. I'm curious, was there any attention that needed to be paid to the policy side of this to make sure that everything, Bob talked about making sure people are legally able to work in the community. Juliet, what was the approach from the policy standpoint?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And it's always one of those where explaining the structure really explains how we approach everything, because we know that things naturally happen as initiatives are brought forward. So there are three things that I just want to quickly unpack in all of these amazing comments that Bob threw out there. One is, of course, from a policy perspective, we're here for our business community and make sure that that it is favorable for their continued growth and for them to continue to thrive in the space that they're in. And we know a crucial component to that is things not only in the space of economic development, but to really pare that down even further, that touches workforce development, it touches housing, and it touches cost of living. And that's all of those marry into this economic prosperity piece that we spoke to earlier. So this initiative was one, as Bob was sharing earlier, it really was focused and came out of our GO economic development arm, but it touched a number of different sectors in our community, as he shared, right? The military component, transitional soldiers, that touches our chamber because we have a military relations council that's purely designed to build this defense ecosystem to support with workforce development opportunities for those that have served. I mean, Kansas has over 7 different installations across the state, and we have, of course, our Kansas Air National Guard that's here, our 190th Refueling Wing, and then Forbes Field. So it naturally had that overlap that's there. The component of the housing piece is super interesting because I don't know what community isn't feeling a strain on housing. We just have had such a boom in all places possible. And so to that end, we've always continued to advocate that we need to come up with simpler and easier solutions for those that are looking to do business in our community to find it easy to enter our market. And what are those things that we can do to make it more of an opportune environment for someone to invest in building new homes or building homes that are the missing middle? We have a number of our businesses that support a diversity of housing. So it's not just one type of housing, it is all of them that we are looking to try and continue to see come live. The single family homes, the condos, affordable housing, and the whole gamut, because as people become economically more mobile, they also transition into different types of rentals or home ownership. And then the component of, this perception is everyone's reality sometimes. So semantics are really important in this conversation. And that's why we specifically worded it as legally eligible individuals that are here, because we know that all types of residents contribute to our pipelines, but we also rely on a significant number of workers that come from outside of the U.S. to feed into our different industries. And so our continued approach has been, we need immigration reform reform that makes sense. While we understand that we want to protect our nation and our interests and keep as much focus on the process as possible and really having a great structure, there is a backlog on worker visa permits. There are times where individuals are here and they're here working, but it's been delayed in their process to continue to extend out, and that creates an uncertainty. And anytime there's uncertainty, it causes disruption in our businesses and their ability to kind of forecast moving forward as well. So I know that touches a few different things, but I wanted to throw it out there because as Bob was sharing, I was like, oh, this is another piece. We overlap, and that relationship that we have helps us in making sure the messaging is appropriate and we're thinking of all the things that we can possible.
Yeah. I like to think of it as job security at the chamber. You guys create a great program that drives, workforce development and economic development, but it creates other things that you need to address now, like we talked about with housing and things like that, immigration reform, things that need to be addressed and keeps the relevancy for what the chamber does. But I love that program. Let's shift gears and turn the focus on the second program. Bob, if you want to highlight what the second program is that you guys submitted on your application.
Yeah, absolutely. Topeka, like many communities around the country, back in the 1980s, this city invested in the development of a real destination mall. It was a 1 million square foot piece of retail real estate. Vanna White came to cut the ribbon on it. It really embodied everything that the 80s and 90s and early 2000s represented in terms of mall traffic and became a real draw across the state. Like most malls across the country, towards the 2010s and going through the pandemic, that piece of real estate in our community, which anchors a $1 billion commercial corridor for us, really started to see distress. Shopping patterns were changing. That 1 million square foot piece of retail real estate began to decline to the point where we only had about 25% occupancy in it. And we had a more predatory real estate developer purchase the mall post-pandemic without really the intention of developing the asset for long-term success. So our community recognized it as a potential real challenge, not just to, our continued ability to attract and retain talent, but also to really project ourselves as a destination across the region. And we were fortunate that in 2023, one of our major employers, Advisors Excel, saw the potential in that real estate to make it a development project which could enhance their own growth plans, but also give back to the community that gave them success. So Advisors Excel is one of the largest financial marketing firms and wealth management groups in the country. They have over 1,000 employees, and they are celebrating their 20th anniversary this year. And their rapid growth has led to increasing demand for how do they keep up with the ability to work from work and provide office space for all their staff within Topeka. Their founders identified the mall as a solution to this challenge, and they purchased that mall with the intention of redeveloping it into 400,000 square feet of office space, as well as 600,000 square feet of mixed-use dining, restaurant, lifestyle space. Because as also offices and employers across the country are figuring out how to incentivize workers to be back in the office and be happy about it, they really saw the ability of creating this new mixed-use campus as a way of really rewarding their employees for being back in the office space, contributing to that sense of corporate culture, but providing the amenities that they need. So now how the partnership features in this particular conversation, we began to think of ways that we could enhance this effort and draw awareness for this retail redevelopment project. And what our team decided to do was to look at how we do our annual meeting and reimagine that as a way of being a part of this catalytic announcement of a new future for West Ridge Mall. So we took our annual meeting, we moved it into the mall, and we really created a 1980s themed mall party and brought in a popular 1980s pop star, Tiffany, known for her mall tour during that era, to really headline our event. And everyone came in themed attire, You had stonewashed jeans and people tight rolling their jeans and neon t-shirts. And we also worked with our local businesses to essentially reskin the food court so that it would look like a 1980s food court. And this really proved to be an exciting event for our community. It normally annual meetings tend to be kind of closed off events where people buy their tables, and we still had that element involved in ours. But since it was held in the food court, the programming and the experience was also open to the public for the first time. So you did buy tables as normal, but the public was invited to kind of stand outside of the event zone and enjoy the concert, hear about the community's progress. And it really proved to be an exciting way of kind of jump-starting that mall project and raising awareness for it on a national scale as Advisors Excel and their team looks to reintroduce that property to national retailers and bringing businesses back. So I always like to use it as a way of encouraging chambers of commerce across the country to get creative with their programming and see how even existing things that they're doing can be leveraged or reimagined to provide added value to their businesses and economic development projects.
That's awesome. I'm having all these flashbacks in my mind of the 80s and what the malls looked like in their heyday. Yep. And so I'm curious, did you guys serve hot dog on a stick and orange Julius's at your banquet?
We did. We absolutely had we had an orange Julius shot. We also set up a GTP shots instead of glamour shots where people could get a feather boa and get their pictures. So we brought in a DeLorean from Back to the Future. We really created a pretty exciting event, especially for those that grew up in the 80s and 90s. It reawoke in people how much they loved having the mall space and got people excited about the project because we know it's going to be a couple years before this mall gets rebuilt and redeveloped. So it got people really engaged and looking for ways to be a part of the momentum.
Yeah. So is there plans to continue? You talked about enhancing the efforts that this mixed use development space looks like. As a chamber, do you guys have continued plans to try to continue drawing a focus there and keep that excitement up for the development?
Absolutely. Yeah. The partnership, we're fortunate because we do share assets across all 4 entities. And so we actually do leverage our ability for graphic design, for marketing, to be able to support our key economic development projects as a way of enhancing how Go Topeka can invest in projects without investing dollars. So we work very closely with the team at Advisors Excel and the mall management team, creating collateral, which allows them to sell the community and to help them to tell the story of why Topeka is a great place for retail and restaurant to invest in. And we also work very closely with those retail site selectors as they visit by meeting those teams. And once again, just talking up why coming back to this mall and coming back to this community at this time is a great opportunity because retail and dining isn't always a focus for economic development groups like Go Topeka, but we see these kind of passive ways to engage that are not necessarily dollar incentive driven is an important way of contributing to that ecosystem because if you don't have great retail and dining, it's hard to get the people to move and it's harder to get the businesses to relocate. So we've gotten very engaged and just actually led a tour last week of the mall and spoke about what this project means for our community.
That's awesome. I love it. And the idea of using your annual meeting as that delivery system to highlight the development in the community, I think is such a great idea. And I've seen other chambers utilize their annual meeting for similar purposes, and probably not to this scale, but it's a great tool to utilize. As we begin to wrap things up, I wanted to ask you both, for chambers listening who want to take their organization up to the next level, what kind of tip or action item might you both have to offer in trying to accomplish that goal?
I always say the sky is the limit in our industry. We're so unique and fortunate that we can get creative and we can be nimble and agile, and our hands being involved in so many parts of our community allow us to do that and really to have champions that surround those efforts. So don't be afraid to kind of be bold and look and seek those opportunities. And then the other part of it is for us to continue to be relevant. It's super necessary for us us to take those bold opportunities and not continue to do what we've always done, because what was working decades ago or years ago isn't what works today. And if we continue to do the same things over and over again, then we start losing our relevancy. And so to be and continue to be relevant, we have to have a pulse for what's in the community and be brave enough to take those bold actions to guide and steer those conversations.
Absolutely. Bob, what thoughts might you have to share?
Yeah, I would just say, I speak to a lot of chambers across the country about the idea of what the partnership model represents. And I think there is incredible value in getting those kind of community stakeholder organizations in each city together, even if they're not a part of a formal partnership, to really align on shared mission and values. So getting your Main Street, your tourism, your Eco Devo, your Chamber of Commerce around a table, figuring out your strategy and working together to advance with one voice. What I found that hurt Topeka during those years in which population stagnated, you had each of these different verticals all kind of marching to their own drum, all kind of fighting for their own turf. And we hit a point in our community's growth where we needed to come together, and our business leaders pushed for it. And so that created the partnership where it forced every entity to give up a certain amount of authority and autonomy, but allowed each one to now activate more powerfully because they're not operating alone. They're able to share costs, they're able to share vision. And so even if a chamber is not able to create a partnership model, just be very intentional about seeking out and working with those stakeholders in your community so that you don't have to do this alone and that everyone is working together off the same script. And I think when you can do that and you're all singing along to the same song, your entire community is going to thrive as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. Juliet, I'll focus this question to you. As we look to the future of chambers of commerce, how do you see the future of chambers and their purpose going forward?
I think what we're seeing now already is this review of membership and investment in our organizations, and the older concept of, you join and you get as much as you put into it. It's becoming increasingly less likely to be the case. Because more and more people are occupied running their business day in and day out. And so the ability for us to become more of an extension of their team, continue to pivot and do things for them ahead of when it impacts them, and provide them solutions to them ahead of time. I think that's where we're seeing most success in our industry, is continuing to be relevant, continuing to be forward thinking, and continuing to know that it's not this join and you have to come to every single thing, but it's invest instead into what opportunities around you that continue to ensure that you thrive. And that would probably be where I feel the direction is. I'll point to, and this is because here's my board plugin for ACCE. Yeah. I'll point to the Horizon initiative that was just released. And if you're not privy to this, the study that was conducted was after, over a decade from the last time that we had a study. And the idea was to try and look at what does the future of chambers look like and how do we continue to operate. But some of the contents of that study really focused on being catalytic, convening, and championing your community. And operating in all of those spaces simultaneously as an organization that continues to breathe life into the populations that we serve. So if you haven't already done so, pick that Horizon up, because it has some really good nuggets of the things that you can be doing and things to watch out for, and really start to incorporate into the future.
Yeah. For anybody who is just living under a rock and doesn't know Horizon, look at the original one from 10 years ago and look at 2.0, and you'll kind of be blown away to read the first Horizon initiative, and to realize how spot on it really was. And if we look at that forward with the 2.0, I anticipate similar accuracy. So before we let you go, I wanted to give you both an opportunity to share any contact information for people who may want to reach out and learn more about the programs that have been highlighted, or just in general, how you guys are doing things there in Topeka. What would be the best way for individuals to reach out and connect with you both?
So I'll start and then I'll throw it at you, Bob. But GreaterTopekaPartnership.com has all the information about all these organizations and the functions of what we do and how we operate. Also has links to any external affiliate entities that we have underneath us, as our social media does as well. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and several other platforms. I will say personally, you can find me on LinkedIn, Juliet Abdel, and I always am open to new friends and more friends. And that is the way that we continue to support one another, is by continuing to grow our network, sharing those best practices, and seeing when we need that support, if there's others that can help lend that. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Instagram at Ms. Juliet Abdel, or on Facebook, and I'm happy to connect with you on any of those platforms.
Perfect. And Bob, how about yourself? Where can people find you or reach out to you?
Absolutely. I encourage anyone, they can reach out to me directly at bob.ross@topekapartnership.com. As Juliet said, you're welcome to also reach out over LinkedIn. We're just happy to use our experience to help other chambers really kind of solve problems. And we've had to solve a lot of problems ourselves over the last 7 and 10 years. So anything we can do to kind of, share from that with our peers is always a welcome conversation to have. So I encourage anyone to reach out, and we're happy to have a conversation.
Very good. We'll be sure to get all that in our show notes for this episode as well to make it easy to connect. But wanted to thank you both for spending time with us today on Chamber Chat Podcast, for highlighting these programs and really the great impact you guys are making there in the Topeka area, and continue to make those big, bold moves and continue impacting your communities. You guys are doing a great job, and I wish you guys best of luck as Chamber of the Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you are a chamber professional, please subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. When you subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast, new episodes will show up in your podcast app each week as they are released. If you're finding value in this podcast, please leave us a rating and a review in iTunes. But most importantly, please share Chamber Chat Podcast with your colleagues that are in the industry.